Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. Welcome to the School of Mary Live Cynical series, and this is the Missionary Disciples in the Divine Will series on Fridays, and we're looking at the at this new if you call it apostolate, I don't even know if that serves it justice. Ministry, I don't think that either. It's a way of life, and it's a big transformation too. Uh, as we read and as we've been journeying, to be a missionary disciple in the divine will, it's it's transition from exterior effort to interior surrender. And I have a little blip on it. Traditional missionary efforts often emphasize programs, outreach events, big events, evangelistic techniques. But living in the divine will shifts the emphasis inward. Our foremost task is to offer ourselves entirely so that Jesus may speak, act, and love through us. It's definitely flipping the script. God's made it easy for us, I think. He says, I had to make this easy and accessible to everyone in all situations, in all circumstances. I think he's done that. He has indeed succeeded. Well, God can't fail. He cannot fail. And we know he wins. What we thought we would do today is just, I know I frequently go back and I recap, even things that, um, that we've heard before, that we kind of know already, but it's just nice to have a refresher because sometimes, most times, every time, God will place something in our mind, in our thoughts, and sometimes even on our lips that wasn't there before. Because again, this is alive. So I've got a document together. Again, it might be a bit redundant on some things, but I don't really think so. I think it's a nice share. I remember the Book of Heaven is referred to as the doctrine of living the divine will. It is a new and divine holiness for the church and for the world. Let me bring out my pointer, if I may. Okay, great. Okay, let's go back. The origin, God's eternal purpose for man. Before sin entered the world, Adam and Eve were created not only in God's image, but to live in his divine will. This meant they participated in God's own operations, loving with his love, thinking with his mind, acting with his power, while remaining fully human. Jesus articulates to Luis in volume 20, I created man so that he might live in my will, as in his own house, and that he might operate with my very ways. And I think we gave a real life example of what this may look like. Think about parents that are raising children. Catholic parents, you're doing the best you can. You take them to church, you pray the rosary. Every day you say grace before meals. And the children growing up in your home, they pretty much have to do it. I mean, I know they want to do it in most instances, but they have to. They're growing up in your house. So they pray the rosary. They say grace before meals. They go to church. They do everything that they're supposed to do. That's pleasing. It's pleasing to the parents. It's pleasing to God. But fast forward 20 years. Now that child is out of the house, has his or her own house. And now as parents, you go visit that house. And you notice that they're saying grace before meals. They're praying the rosary every day. They go to church every Sunday. This is more pleasing to the parent. This is also more pleasing to God because it's being done of one's own fruition, own choice. They don't have to, but they want to. Big delineation. So that's what I think God is saying here to Louisa. I created man so that he might live in my will as in his own house. Take possession of it. And that he might operate with my very ways. I mean, what better way to live? There is no other way to live. This state was lost through original sin. Though humanity remained free will, it became disconnected from God's own inner life. We lost it. And the phrase is, Adam and Eve, they lost everything, but they really didn't lose everything, because if they had lost everything, they would have ceased to exist. God kept their hearts beating, their blood flowing, and their lungs breathing, so that redemption would be possible. And of course, now, the era of sanctification. God's never surprised. He can't lose. And he's never going to waver his love. So it really is no surprise. So the state was lost through original sin. Though humanity remained free, it became disconnected from God's own inner life, making us capable of doing God's will, but not living in it as Adam did. The entire history of salvation, culminating in Christ and Mary and God's plan to restore humanity to this original state. Elevated now by grace to a higher participation in the divine life. Elevated now by grace, only by grace, to a higher participation in the divine life. What Luis refers to and calls the gift of living in the divine will. We're so fortunate. Okay, well, a recap too. From doing God's will to living it. Sounds familiar. I remember when Father Iannuzzi was here back in 2015. He spent 3 or 4 days here at Mary's Hill. And I invited, at the time I was participating in the music ministry in the Charismatic Renewal. And I invited the band leader, who was very active in the church. He said, "Come on, you got to see this. You got to listen to this." And about 45 minutes into Father Iannuzzi's talk, he got up and he was leaving. So I got up and I said, "Hey, Jim, where are you going?" He goes, "Not Pete, I got to get back to the house." He says, "Besides, I'm already doing this." He was looking at it through a lens of doing God's will, which we're all called to do. But this gift is to live in it, not just by it. So number 2, from doing God's will, again, recap, to living in it. Conventional holiness, doing God's will. What does that mean? Well, we strive to obey God's commandments. We offer personal sacrifices, good works. And it's centered, concentrated on virtues, purification, and personal sanctification. All good, holy. Doing God's will. Now, the divine will, holiness, living in God's will, receives the divine will as its own life. We become it. It becomes us. Participates in God's own acts in an internal divine mode. Remember, in my opinion, the two greatest delineations between this gift of the divine will and all other gifts that God has given to mankind is transtemporality. Our acts affect all souls, past, present, and future, concomitantly at the same time. How's that possible? Well, with God, all is possible. And the second delineation is it's eternal. It's not bound by space and time. It goes on and on and on. And couple eternity with transtemporality, it's everything. And we look at Daniel. Daniel made beautiful rounds, probably more majestic rounds than we can ever do. But his rounds were only effectuating a change or benefit to those few generations in his presence. The old, the young, the in-between. 3 generations, maybe. But now we offer our rounds, even our impromptu rounds, imperfect, very imperfect, but placing them in the divine will. Again, with transtemporality, affecting all souls, past, present, and future, and being of an eternal nature that goes on for perpetuity. What's greater? Similarly, the controversial, the divine will is greater than the sacraments, greater than the Eucharist. How can that be? God's greater than God? No. Church teaches us that the Eucharist, which is the divine will, is active in us for the 20 or 25 minutes until the host dissolves. Again, predicated also on our disposition. Our efficacy is determined by our preparation or lack thereof. But in the divine will, God does all the work in advance, prepares us to receive the full effect. And then that communion that we enjoy in the Eucharist for the 20 or 25 minutes becomes perennial. Okay, so what's greater? It's not about God is greater than God, but perennial is greater than 25 minutes. I mean, if you look at it simplistically, it's much more complicated than that. But it's like I have 2 full glasses of water. They're full. One's 16 ounce and one is 12 ounce. Which one is greater? Which one has more? They're both full. So it's not limited to time, space, or personal matter. Again, I don't understand this completely. Absolutely not. No space, no time. Also allows God to act in, with, and through the soul continuously, not just intermittently. Jesus articulates the will he sent to us. To live in my will is to live with one single will, God's will, which contains all lives, all acts, and all goods. Nothing escapes it. Volume 12. In other words, it is no longer simply a life of grace, but the divine life of God himself operating in the soul. Delivered by grace, yes. Elevating every act, breathing, blinking, loving, working on an eternal level with eternal value when done in the divine will. Jesus says that one act in the divine will, even something as we consider insignificant, blinking of the eye, in the divine will, is greater than all the acts done outside of God's will of all time, of all souls, including all saints, combined. One act. Because that one act is done on the level of God, due to God, only available when fused with God's will, when living in his will, not just by his will. Okay, 3, the role of Louisa. And maybe I'll just back up a bit. Apologetics, rebuttals to the divine will, objections. Pete, there's nothing new. We have everything. Everything's been given. Nothing new. True. But Article 66 of our Catholic Catechism states, although no new public revelations are expected before the glorious return of our Lord, it is for the future generations, us, to better understand what has already been given. It's becoming explicated, better understood. Nothing's being added to it. Nothing's being subtracted from it. It's like the flower. Let's say the church is a flower. We've memorized this flower. We can visualize it with our eyes closed. For 2,000 years, we've looked at it. We know it. We know everything about it. Then all of a sudden, the divine will comes, a magnifying glass, a distinctive lens, we'll call it. And now we can see that flower much greater, much deeper. I can see the photosynthesis in the leaves. Wow, that's new. Not really. It's always been there. We just couldn't see it. Look at the fuzz on the petals. That's wonderful. It's new. It's new to us, but it's always been there. So Article 66 really very carefully and skillfully prepares the church for the divine will, I think. And then if we go to the next article, Article 67, it defines the role of a mystic. The role of a mystic is not to improve, add, or delete from public revelation, but through their words, help us to understand it to a greater degree in a certain period of time. Again, a distinctive lens, a magnifying glass, a way to look deeper into what's already been there, already been given to us. So Luis, a humble mystic from Corrado, Italy, was chosen to be the first soul to receive and live this gift continuously after Adam, after Eve, after our Blessed Mother, after Jesus. Beginning in the late 19th century, Jesus dictated to her over 36 volumes detailing the nature of this gift, how it was lost and restored. See, much of this was never really known or wasn't solidified. Talks about the new era of sanctity, inaugurates practical ways to live in it daily. How necessary is that? Luis is now a servant of God, and her cause for canonization is ongoing. Her writings have received the Nihil Obstat and Imprimatur in various forms. The Nihil Obstat is for all 36 volumes, all of Luis's writings, meaning that the church has determined that they contain nothing contrary to faith or morals. There's no error in these writings. But there are translations that have errors. There are teachings that have errors. So there are errors. They're just not in Luis's work. They're not in what God gave to Luisa. So we have to be careful. Even Jesus says to Luisa, be very careful when you speak about my divine will. I mean, there was a big uproar in France. I think the French bishops were against the divine will, but it was only because there was a large group there that was sort of adding their own things and I don't want to say making things up, but again, it was, and some of it was not Catholic, so it came under scrutiny. But the Vatican had to assure the French bishops that there is no error in the writings, in the true writings, but that these presentations of it through various groups may not be good. And again, we're not saying that they're doing these things nefariously. Overzeal, it could be a lot of things. Lack of a check and balance. It could be a lot of things. But there are no errors in the writings themselves. So that's good. And still, people don't want to believe it, and that's okay. The church does not force anyone to. It's worthy of belief. There's no error. But church is not going to validate our free will either. The writings contain nothing contrary to faith or morals. Her teachings are being studied carefully by the church under the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. They've been doing that for a long time. Why? Because Luis is guilty of writing more than any other saint. It needs to be scrutinized carefully. What are some of the key elements, key themes in this doctrine? First one is the gift of the divine will. This gift is not earned. It's nothing that we've done in our lives. We've achieved this, we've achieved that, and now we receive the gift. No. In fact, there are many souls out there that have done much more than we have in a much grander fashion that have not received the enlightenment yet that we have. Remember, Jesus has an affection for the lowly. And it goes back to the grotto. He explains that. I think it's in volume 34. He says, when I came into this world in my humanity, the Pharisees weren't there. The priests weren't there. The shepherds were. The people that are working the fields in the wee hours of the day, or evening, I should say. They didn't smell well. Maybe they were hungry. Maybe they weren't very articulate. But they came and they offered gifts. Whatever they had, it wasn't what they gave, but the fact that they wanted to give. And he said, because of this, I have an affection for the downtrodden, for the lowly. For the non-upper echelon. That's us. Why has he chosen Father Gooby, Sister Faustina, Louisa, first grade education? Again, because they fit this love that God has for those who have difficulty doing everything because of circumstances, but yet easy to recognize the Christ. Easy to give a gift from when we have very little to give. That is why he chooses folks like us. So again, this gift is not earned, freely given by God to those who desire it. Ask for it and begin to live it with faith and love. Yeah, but how's it introduced? In a myriad of different ways. Our Lord has orchestrated, Our Lady has delivered it, perhaps through someone, through something, but it's not predicated on anything we've done. It has nothing to do with any work that we have or have not done. But once we receive the knowledge of the gift and we give our fiat, yes, Lord, I want this, that's when our work begins. That's when it counts. Because now God says, okay, you said yes, you want this? Okay, now you got to prove it. I'm going to give you commensurate to your desire, commensurate to your effort. Are you going to meditate on this? Are you going to study this? Are you going to read this? Listen to this? We have all the volumes on the website. They're free in print and in audiobook, queenofthedivineworld.org. And there's many other websites that have them, of course. And you can buy them through publishing companies if you like, even on Amazon. So they're available. And yes, we're waiting for the critical edition to be released, but that doesn't mean we don't do anything until that time. And when the critical edition is released, thank God, that'll be our baseline. That'll be our working document. We'll all be on the same page, to coin a phrase I'm not fond of. So no worry. And just use common sense. If something doesn't sound Catholic, it doesn't sound Christian, doesn't sound right, investigate. Maybe it's not. But we ought to be able to recognize that. Not specifically when it comes to the intricacies of the teachings. That's another issue too. And we have to be careful too not to convey personal opinions as doctrinal truths. Like if someone was to say, this is not going to be ushered in until the Pope ushers it in. That may be true, but it's found nowhere in the writings. It's a personal opinion. And again, it could be correct, but it's a personal opinion. I know what Jesus said. Jesus said, I had to make this gift easy and accessible to everyone in all situations, all circumstances, and in every place. I know he said that. And I believe that. We've been given a tremendous gift already. The fact that we can recognize the divine will as something extraordinary, something out of the ordinary, not normal, way beyond that. That's a gift. And if we haven't thanked God for that today, why don't we take time right now to say, thank you, Lord, for however you did it, introducing me to this beautiful gift of living in divine will. So we did nothing to deserve it. It had nothing to do with the work that we did or did not do. But then once we accept it, that's when our work will be measured. And that's when we'll be given commensurate based on our desire, our effort, and our ability to trust. Faith, Jesus says in volume 2, faith equals God. He gives us a definition of heaven. Does it throughout the volumes. So this gift is not earned, but freely given by God to those who desire it. We may not even been clear in what we're desiring. God gives it freely to those who desire it, ask for it, and begin to live it with faith and love. It is a return to the original purpose of creation. It's a mystical gift. And we know mystical gifts are not given equally like our baptismal gifts. Mystical gifts are given unequally in God's good pleasure to whomever he wishes to give it, when he wishes to give it, to what extent he wishes to give it. It's a gift, not deserving by anyone. But now our work begins. Jesus articulates to Luis and to us in volume 15, I want to give man my will as life, as his own thing. I want my children to take what is mine. Again, not doing God's will, but living in it, through it, with it. Big difference. May sound similar. That's in volume 15. Again, we're rehashing things we already know, but it's nice to hear them again, I think. All right, B, interior fusion. The soul fuses its will with God's. Through simple prayers and intentions, making a radical interior surrender and allowing God's will to take over. This is one of the big changes of becoming a missionary disciple in the divine will. It's a transition from external effort to interior surrender. And I have a little blip on it. Traditional missionary efforts often emphasize programs, outreach events, conferences, retreats, evangelistic techniques, but living in the divine will shifts the emphasis inward. Our foremost task is to offer ourselves entirely so that Jesus may speak, act, and love through us. Then some will be called to organize. It's like when Jesus says, we must give up even holy things. But don't we strive for holy things? Yes. But if this gift is trans-temporal, if we embrace it, it'll affect all souls, past, present, future, in the beautiful communion of saints. We'll become humble heroes. And we did a comparison between Daniel's rounds and the rounds that are available to us. Tremendous difference. So to give up even holy things, yes, to embrace the divine will so that we can engage that chance temporality, that eternalness. We must engage that. Turn it on. And then we can go back and do everything we were doing, but on a greater level. Not because we're doing it on a greater level, but God is taking it to another level, a level we cannot achieve on our own. So interior fusion, the soul fuses itself with God's through simple prayers, intentions, making a radical interior surrender and allowing God's will to take over. Again, it's a morphing from external effort. Do this, do that, do this, do that, to interior surrender. And that can be done anywhere, anytime. Rain or shine, night or day, light or dark. It's internal. This entire gift is invisible. No thief can steal it because no thief can see it. The only way we lose what's been given to us is if we give it up ourselves. We're not going to do that. Volume 17. Jesus states, fusing oneself in my will is the most solemn, the greatest, and the most important act of all. You think he means that? Or you think he's just kidding? Nah, he doesn't really mean that. Of course he does. Fusing oneself in my will, becoming one with God, under the protection of God, the guidance of God, the love of God, to the extreme, to the max, is the most solemn, the greatest, and the most important act of all. Found in volume 17. Eternal and universal acts. A soul living in the divine will is no longer limited by time and space. We mentioned that. Their acts take on eternal value and can impact all souls across all history. We talked about that too, transtemporality. Because they are done in the mode of the eternal one. We're not doing anything differently. God is. Rounds of creation, redemption, and sanctification. These are prayers that go around all of God's works in creation, redemption, and sanctification. They're found on our website, queenofthedivinewill.org, and it's found in the page entitled Divine Will Resource Library. And they're free. Everything is free. What's freely given should be freely given back. These are prayers that go around all of God's works in creation, redemption, and sanctification, uniting with God's own acts and returning perfect love, thanksgiving, and glory to Him on behalf of all souls. Giving glory to God on the level of God, due to God, only possible through and in God's most holy divine will. All right, scriptural, magisterial support. And again, this is very limited. There's much more than this. I'll just throw a couple of things out here. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, Matthew. The only prayer that God gave to his disciples, encompassing everything of his work. And the divine will is the fulfillment. He says it. This is the fulfillment of the Our Father prayer. Divine Mercy's petition, have mercy on us and on the whole world, that's been accomplished. His greatest act of mercy is providing the divine will to anyone who wants it. The fulfillment of the Our Father prayer, a petition that God knew would be answered because he knew it's the will of the Father as well. It's happening in our lifetime. Romans 8:19 through 23 speaks of creation groaning for the revealing of the children of God. That's us. A sign of the restoration of original grace. We're going back. We're moving forward, going back. The Catechism of the Catholic Church, 280206 through 06, describes doing God's will as the key to holiness, and living in the divine will as its crowning fulfillment. And we also mentioned Articles 66 and 67 before. There's another page on our website at queenofthedivinewill.org entitled the Catholic Catechism of the Church and the Divine Will. And you'll see about 50 entries, if not more, of our catechism that relate to the divine will. Open the door for the divine will. Set a placemat for the divine will. The church is very well poised to receive this gift. Hence, it's coming to fruition before our eyes in our lifetime. One of my favorites, number 6, Mary, the divine will. Mary is the first creature to live perfectly and continuously in the divine will, which is why she is called by Louisa the queen of the divine will. That's also her favorite title. Mother and queen of the divine will. Her fiat is the model for all future souls who will say yes to God in every moment. Speaking of our catechism, Article 507 states that Our Lady, Blessed Mother Mary, is the perfect model, the perfect example of Holy Mother Church. So why would we not emulate the perfect model, the perfect example? Our Lady speaks to Louisa and to us in volume 18 and states, in me the divine will had its kingdom, its field of action. It did nothing which did not descend from me. God's the manufacturer of grace. Our Lady's the distributor. Our Lady's been entrusted with rounding up the little children of the divine will and bringing them this gift. That's her job. Volume 18. Okay, number 7. Living this doctrine today. Daily practices. Again, very, very small slice. Morning prevenient act. Offering the entire day in the divine will. You can read the 2-page Father Newsy version, or you can, if you're really stretched and you've got other obligations, Lord, I want to live every moment, every breath in your most holy divine will today and always. Amen. So you can read 2 pages, you can read 2 lines. It's the intention that matters, not the words necessarily. So daily practices, morning offering, preventing act, actual acts throughout the day, come divine will, driving my driving, come divine will, walking my walking. By the way, what happens, Jesus explains to us, what happens when we call the divine will? Like, come divine will, speaking my speaking, what happens? If we're in the state of grace, when we utter that request, the Father in heaven recognizes our request. This is in volume 34. I don't have it in front of me, but the Father recognizes our request. He hears us. So he's attentive to our request. He first looks within himself. He calls into huddle the sacrosanct Trinity. He then amasses all possible and imaginable graces. He then transports them, bilocates them into the soul, thus divinizing that act. So if you think it's just trivial saying, come divine will, speaking my speaking. On the contrary, it sets all of heaven in motion. Is this true? Can this really be? Of course. With God, all things are possible. Fusing prayers, uniting my thoughts, my words. Come divine will, walking my walking, washing my washing. I fuse my thoughts, my activities, my love, my affection today with yours. Thus bringing it to a higher level. Meditation on the hours of the Passion invites and unites us with the sufferings of Christ. Also, Jesus says, if one soul in a town meditates on my hours of the Passion, that town will be spared. Talk about a hero. And we don't have to be in any specific place to do that. Remember, Jesus put Luis in bed and said, you're to look like you're doing nothing while you do everything. If this is easy and accessible to everyone, it has to be like air, accessible, and not contingent on disabilities or income or lack thereof. How, it doesn't matter. In fact, sometimes, most times, the less we have, the easier it is for us to make this transition. So meditating on the hours of the Passion. And if you're going to do this, please search for a version that has the reflection by St. Hannibal of Francia. It's incredibly positive to have that in addition to the hours. It's also on our website, queenofdivinewill.org, in the on the page entitled Divine Will Resource Library. We have it both in print and an audiobook. So if you'd like to download the audio and maybe listen to those through earbuds while you're vacuuming like I do, you can make the best use of time. Rounds of love and reparation, prayerfully traveling through creation and history with divine acts. Again, Lord, take me. May I do this act lovingly in your most holy divine will. I go around time and space, placing my I love you on the lips of all souls that did not say that to you, could not say that to you, or didn't know to say that to you. Stepping in the breach, filling the gaps, plugging the voids, however you want to describe it. Fruits in the soul, deep peace and abandonment. The end of ego and self-will. I am really nothing. Greater effectiveness of prayer. Again, God's taking this to a higher level. Participation in divine work of salvation and sanctification. Think about this. Jesus told Luis and told other church-approved mystics like Vera Grita that we are co-creating, we are co-redeeming, we are co-sanctifying. And we're doing that in the divine will. Did you ever think as a child that you'd be co-redeeming with Christ? I certainly didn't. Co-creating with Christ? Not even a thought. Co-sanctifying. I can't even sanctify myself. How can I co-sanctify others? With God, all things are possible. Preparation for the kingdom, for the coming of the kingdom of the divine will on earth. Yes, we are here. We are missionary disciples in the divine will. Transforming our efforts from external effort to interior surrender. And allowing the full dispensation of grace, because Jesus says, the more we let him do in us when fused, the more souls I will rescue and the more glory the Father will receive. As missionary disciples, our apostolate is not measured solely by visible results. This is not Jesus' words. These are our words here at the School of Mary. But our fidelity to God's will in every moment. It's all here. And this is just so incredible. It's so incredible that it almost becomes difficult to believe. But if you have a doubt, that's okay. Jesus doesn't necessarily see doubts as negative. He didn't ridicule Thomas. He just said, here, touch me. And doubt can serve as a positive effect too. If we believe something but have doubts, reservations, the more we investigate, maybe those doubts will be erased by our additional knowledge, acquiring additional knowledge. Or if we didn't believe something, maybe investigating again may change our perspective on things. So Jesus doesn't see doubt as negative. Actually, doubt has two positive effects. There's no negative that can be obtained through doubt. Healthy doubt we're talking about. Okay, number 8. The kingdom of the divine will, a new era of sanctity. Bring this up here. The church awaits the triumph of the Immaculate Heart of Mary and the coming of the kingdom of the divine will. Both are in progress as far as I'm concerned. Again, this is my personal opinion. It's not a political or external reign, but an interior reign of the divine will in souls. It's happening. And when the church received the Nihilabstadt last year, 2024, it opened the gates. I mean, there's so many people now blogging. There's so many people now talking about the divine will. I think they were apprehensive. They were sort of on the fence. I don't mean that negatively. Waiting for that confidence that this is real, that this is true, that this is error-free. And it's happened. And don't listen to what others say about folks. Make your own decision. Maybe there's something that resonates with you spoken by so-and-so. Or maybe so-and-so there has a understanding similar to yours, that way you're able to put it together more easily. And if everything doesn't resonate with you, then just take what's good, take what you need, and leave the rest. But encourage one another. Don't speak negatively about each other. There's much of that out there. And that's not divine will. That can't be divine will, because that's not God. It's not love. Father Gobi said that the triumph of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, the era of peace, and the Eucharistic reign of Jesus will not occur until all are living in the divine will. He mentioned that. He mentioned Luisa by name. That was in San Marino in 1996. It's on the website of Marian Movement Priests. And it just so happens that one of Mother Gabriel's monasteries is in San Marino. Can't make this stuff up. So yeah, Father Gobi was humbled. He knew that everything that was being divulged to him by Our Lady would not come to fruition until everyone was living in the divine will. He knew that. He accepted that. I believe we're living the triumph of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. We are indeed living the coming of the kingdom of the divine will. This doctrine is the fulfillment of the Our Father prayer, a universal outpouring of divine life that will bring about a new sanctity, a new and divine way of holiness. Remember that? The church has never seen before. Pope Benedict said in an audience of bishops, Pope Benedict Emeritus, God is wrapping up, quote, God is wrapping up everything. 6,000 years of assistance through grace is now being organized and explained by God himself, so as to define unequivocally the truth, and nothing but the truth, not through man. Man must realize, however, he cannot explain everything, end quote. This is mystical. This is underground. This is invisible. Jesus confirms in volume 19, this is the greatest miracle I want to do, to make my will reign in souls. You think if Jesus wants to do it, it's going to come to fruition? Of course. Of course it is. Because the will of Jesus is the will of the Father. Well, here at the School of Mary invites you to enter this new dawn of sanctity. Let her hold your hand, teach you her fiat, and introduce you into the kingdom of the divine will, where God will be all in all. 3 hearts, 1 divine will. The time is now. We're so blessed. Thanks be to God. Have a wonderful Friday, or if you're already into your Saturday, great weekend. And hope to see you on Sunday at 2 p.m. with Mother Gabriel Marie and the Benedictine Daughters of Divine Will. Love everyone. Be kind to one another, please.